we're going to get into a couple examples. You might be thinking, well, how am I going to apply any of this? I am going to work a few examples from your homework. This one I actually left from last semester where I missed this the first time. I thought it was kind of a tricky question the very first time I looked at it. And so I think it's a great one to have in your notebook. So if you don't mind, this is going to be an example. It might be the hardest, I want to say one of the hardest ones in this assignment. So I'm going to start with this to make sure you have it in your notebook. In your homework, they're going to give you some type of a chart. Most of these problems will have some type of a chart. So I want to talk you through what these charts are. So over on the right-hand corner, I'm gonna annotate this chart a little. On the right-hand corner, so focused up here, you'll be given maybe some reference years. So we have reference years, prices here. And so we'll look at the title. These are average gasoline prices per gallon for different years. And then it says price as a percentage of 1990 price. So it looks like our indices here, our index is comparing each of these prices for gallons to 1990. Why 1990? Well, for this particular problem, that's going to be our reference. Price as a percentage of 1990 is exactly what corresponds to this price index over here. It won't be the case for every single setup, by the way, but because we're using 1990 as 100 here, and that's a really nice index value, then we simply lose each of those percentages. Notice that in 1960, the price was 31 cents, but it increases as time goes on. So that seems like it makes sense. Make sure that you're looking at that and understanding that 1990 is going to be our reference value. So for this problem or whenever we use this index, we are comparing everything to 1990. So keep that in mind. Okay, I'm going to clear some of my highlighting there and let's look at the problem. If it costs $11 to fill a tank, so fill your entire gas tank, you probably wouldn't be driving a huge SUV in 1980. So $11 to fill an entire gas tank in 1980. Those were the days, right? But let's look at what it would cost for 2010. So how much of your tank could you fill with $11 in 2010? And you all are still most of you were probably still young in 2010, but what we're going to do is see how much it costs to fill a tank in 2010 and then see how much of that tank $11 would fill. So that's where we're headed. And you can even see my answers. So we're going to work out how to get there. Okay, this is an equation that I gave you a little bit earlier that we're about to use, and it says price in Y dollars is equal to price in X dollars times the CPIs, the quotient of the CPIs. We're going to use this formula right now so that you understand how to apply it. The price in X is always something that you've been given. So when you see this value right here, if you want to add a note to your notebook, this is something you've been given. Well, we were given that it was $11 to fill the gas tank in 1980. So I'm going to plug that in for the price in 1980 dollars. That's what that stands for. So $11 is the price in 1980 dollars. That's right here. Then I see multiplication, so I'm going to multiply. I know that that's confusing because of the x's, but this is just representing the multiplication symbol here. And I used a star for typing this in with the word processor. And then it says CPI sub y. Okay, the numerator, I need to think about what year I want my answer in, and that's the y for the formula here. So I want to find the amount it would take to fill the tank in 2010. That needs to be in the numerator. So I'm going to put this in a different color. CPI for Y, I'm sorry, it's tough to write on the screen here. CPI for Y needs to be 2010 CPI. So I'm going to go to the chart, look for 2010, and find the cost price index for 2010. That's what I want to convert it to, $2010. So that's why that index needs to be in the numerator. So you'll notice I have that in the numerator here. the third piece of my formula says to find the CPX of X. I need you to remember, here's what you're going to have the most trouble with on your homework. You need to remember that if you're trying to cancel $1980, then you need to have the CPI for $1980 in the denominator. And so I'm going to look up the CPI for 1980, which is up here on the third row, and that needs to be in the denominator. So these units are they're essentially canceling. So $11 was a price in 1980. So dividing by the index for 1980 is canceling everything to do with 1980. That's why you need to have it in the numerator and denominator. That is essentially cancel. And so when you do this calculation, I thought that I had it where it would pop up. Sorry, there we go. When you do this calculation, you'll have you'll still have dollars, $25.60, but this is now in terms of Y. This is now in terms of $2010. So in 2010, if I had the same vehicle, it would cost me $25.60 to fill the tank. Now, with only $11, the question here was asking how much of the same tank could be filled with $11 in 2010. If it costs $25 to fill that tank and I only use $11, this ratio will give me the percentage of my tank that I could fill, which is 43%. And you'll notice, be really careful reading the instructions. So I needed to answer this with that 0.43 there. I'm trying to get that chat message. Okay, I had a great message. I think that it is a direct message. How do I understand I don't understand how they cancel, I think is kind of what the question is about, which is a great statement, great question. We're going to work more of these, but if you guys will recall when we were working unit analysis and we needed to set something up, so I'm going to try to write on the screen where this makes sense. If I needed to go from, say, inches to centimeters, I needed to cancel the inches unit. So what you're essentially doing here is taking $11 from, I'm actually going to write it differently, 11 in $1980, $1980, and you are multiplying by a conversion ratio. The conversion ratio is a CPI in $1980. So this 99.2 is in, you can think about it, 1980. And then since we want to compare or change our answer to 2010, then that's why we use the 230.9, which is a 2010 index. So the 1980 information cancels because you have something over itself. Remember that when you multiply fractions, if you have something in the numerator and denominator, it cancels out. Anything over itself is 1. And then when you multiply across, well, you have $11 times 230.9 divided by 99.2, which is this calculation that I did right here. That's going to give you in a calculator $25.60, but you need to remember this is in $2010 now because that was remaining in your numerator. Okay, I hope that my scratch work doesn't confuse you more, but that's writing it out where you can see the fractions stacked as well. That's a great question. I wanted to give you a thorough explanation, and then remember there are always help features and you can try the problem as many times as you'd like to feel comfortable with it.